Hello, everybody in the party.
Hey guys, sorry for the late
start.
We were running a bit late with our own developments.
Is the light fine? I'm gonna turn on the lights.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yes, hello. I've called today's episode "The Leftovers." I thought that was an appropriate title.
Yeah, I think that's all right.
Which actually, I don't have my notebook. Such preparation.
Well, I've just spent the jogging my memory because you know how terrible mine is.
Well, so basically, our idea for today's show, since it's sadly, I guess, the last show, well,
For the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but I guess, well, we don't know for sure what we're gonna do with the show and stuff because like distance issues and all that stuff. We're definitely gonna try and make upkeep the social media and all that stuff because that's easier. But yes, we don't know what we're gonna do exactly with the show. But for now, we're just gonna cover the topics that we've kind of left over in the other episodes because we don't really have time for everything, so we always have stuff that we're like, oh, we wish we had more time to talk about this or that or whatever. That's what today's show is.
Yeah, and again, this is just going to be a nice variety of all the stuff that we didn't get to cover in any of our last shows. So hopefully we should have a nice little mixture of different things to talk about today, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I have my giant notebook here, so I'm pretty sure I must have some things that I haven't talked about. Like, I definitely remember not talking about Kurt Cobain.
I jogged my memory on two that I can remember having in the back of my mind, but can't really remember if I talked about them or not. So if I have in the past, I apologise. But the two that I sort of jogged my memory on was Dear David.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that one.
Bastard. And
no, we haven't.
Oh, we haven't?
No, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And The Sun Has Vanished.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I thought they would be two fitting ones to work well together because they're both sort of ARGs, like real life horror stories that are happening and are very interactable with the audience, which I think is a very cool and new way of telling a story, sort of thing. Although these are stories, Dear David's left a bit to the imagination, whether you want to believe it or not. But in my mind, personally, a lot of the stuff is far too more on the cliche side to be real. It's just a good story that's being played a part with.
You can go on about that if you want.
Oh yeah, well I'll start off with the one that's definitely a story, and that's The Sun Has Vanished. It seems to take inspiration from a event that did actually happen in England. It happened in England.
What? The sun vanished?
Oh no, but very close to it. But imagine this: so, like, it's May 19th, 1780, and a combination of what was assumed to be clouds and just smog. And all of the shit in the air that had built up throughout the cities was so thick that no light was coming through.
When was this?
In 1780. So when horses. Did you know when before cars were popular, when they started getting sold popularly, it was seen as the greener alternative to horses. Horses are stinky things, nasty.
Yes.
But it was reported to be to such a point that even in the middle of the day you need candles just to see outside, and this seems to take inspiration for that in the fact that on the 30th of April, account was made simply called.
After you finish with this, I'm going to mention something that I realised. But go on. Yes.
All right, yeah.
It's just so I don't forget.
But on the 30th of April, 2018, a Twitter account popped up under the name The Sun Has Vanished, and it started posting comments in which sorry, there's a fly.
Yeah,
it's annoying right in front of me. It's got it. I brought food in from my kitchen and it's followed me.
Is this drinkable?
Yes, I opened that today.
Okay.
You first. It was like early today, however, so it may be flat.
It's okay. I don't like fizzy drinks.
Oh,
here's to the last show.
Well, there we are. But and it was pointed in the same sense of this actually happening, in which, are you okay?
That might have been a not so good decision. Sorry, carry on.
I told you it was from this morning, but well, technically last night.
Sorry, I'm just figuring out the mic stand.
But yes, this sort of accounts started posting help signs and asked questions for help, and the fact that apparently out of nowhere, with no sign or anything happening, the sun had just vanished. And what makes this really interesting is there's video to go along with it. So there's little clips the person has took away.
Which, I mean, they could have just taken them all at night.
But no, it's yeah, that's pretty much what they seem to do. However, it's the extent of this story that's really interesting, and the fact that there's news reports that
that's the thing that always gets me the most, because that part looks very realistic.
Yeah, there's a lot of thought and attention that's being put into it.
Yeah.
As well as that, again, it's entirely interactable. So the person posting this story asks for help and suggestions from the people who are being involved, and reading along as it goes along. You can still read up on it, however, the effect is kind of lost.
Yeah, but there's still like a video. Well, I'm guessing there's like multiple, but people that do like dramatic readings and stuff.
Yeah, there's loads, but it's and then as well as that, there's it's a really slow burning like story. It's really interesting. Things don't hit 11 straight away because it's got the span of months to go along. So like things do escalate. There's a threat that is there. However, I won't spoil it. However, it's slowly just like hinted towards as the story goes along, and as the story goes along, the character that's posting this, the person who's posting this, is making decisions on how to proceed and how to go along with it, and you can help them make them decisions, and they'll put polls up and then go along with the decision that gets the most votes, and it's really interesting.
There was a very interesting thing that happened a couple of years ago that this guy on Spanish Twitter did. He's called Manuel Bartual, and it was a very similar thing in the sense that it was like a Twitter story, and it was, I don't know exactly what it was about. It became viral and all that stuff. Like, like these things, the whole like realistic and like interactive thing that they have is that it's very gradual. Like people will post like a couple tweets one day and be like, oh, this is suspicious. And then the next day they'll be like, oh, this is starting to get worse, blah, blah, blah. So people like start catching on to it and like following the story, and like more people start following you to like see what happens next and all that stuff. So the thing that happened with this guy, Manuel Bartual, is something about like him being on holiday and him being like starting to be followed, like he started being chased and like stuff starts appearing in his room and all that stuff, and then something happens where he kind of like notices that like the person that's following him is kind of like a version of him because it looks like him, and like obviously at first it was all very enticing because it was all very like realistic sounding. It wasn't like, oh, the fucking sun is entirely gone and the rest of the world is perfectly fine, because like that's the thing, that's my problem with the whole the sun is gone thing, which is like such a, like obviously we all see the sun, so like if the sun was gone, we surely would have all noticed.
It loses its effect straight away because it's a play of
because the sun hasn't fucking gone anywhere.
Exactly.
But this guy was like just this thing that happened on his holiday, and he was just like talking about it like as a normal thing, so it was very interesting. But obviously when as the story like progressed and all that stuff, you kind of tell that it was not realistic. I don't know how it ended, but it basically ended by him saying like, this was all like fiction. Like I just wanted to do this as like an interactive, like interesting story, and it became like a really big thing. He was on TV and all that stuff. He tried to do like a second part, I think, like last year.
It just didn't have the same effect because you knew it was fiction.
Exactly, and also because like a lot of stuff surfaced from his past, that like very, very sexist and racist illustrations that were like.
You've always got to be careful of your footprints.
Yeah.
But no, that reminds me of actually another story in which it wasn't actually this person started posting on Twitter of creepy things happening in a house, and it turns out to be true, and it actually saved his life. It was either Twitter or I believe Reddit, whichever one, where a guy started posting that he was getting strange notes from his notepad around his house, warning them about his landlord and how he doesn't want them to talk and how he's a friend. And he was like, right, this is strange. And he got progressively weirder and weirder and like more cryptic. And then someone said, check your carbon monoxide like alarm. And they went, oh yeah. God. Oh yeah. So he got the landlord to check the alarm. He was actually breathing carbon monoxide, and what was happening is he was blacking out. He was riding the wave and he was blacking out, and he was writing these notes to himself. And if no one on the internet told him to check that, he probably would have died.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have lived. He's like, it's a weird response to just accidentally drugging myself up. It's just to leave myself creepy, cryptic notes.
That's very interesting.
But yeah, what have you got?
Did we end up talking about Candle Cove? I think we did.
I'm not sure. It's a nice little quick one, even if we haven't.
I think we have. I'm not entirely sure. We've definitely talked about this Russian sleep experiment in Jumbane, but I think we didn't get to talk about Amelia Earhart.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember very clearly saying,
yes,
I need to talk about Amelia Earhart because I love her case.
We had a quick discussion about it, but we didn't fully go into it. I remember, yeah.
So my favorite unsolved / technically solved but not solved properly cases are the Jumbane Ramsey case and the Amelia Earhart case to date. Although there are so many that are so interesting, but these ones are just like the most like blatantly like frustrating to me because, well, we've talked about the Jumbane one, link it in the description as well as linking the narration of The Sun Is Gone. But yeah, I'll link our episode about talking about Jumbane Ramsey. But yeah, Amelia Earhart. I'm pretty sure everyone knows who Amelia Earhart is. In case you don't know, she is basically the first woman that tried to fly a plane around the planet, around Earth, I guess.
Yeah.
So what we all thought, what the government wants us to think, is that she crashed in this random island in the Pacific and she just died and she was never found, or like they found some wreckage from the plane but it wasn't entirely confirmed that it was her. It's always been like a very mysterious thing around her death, but most people just like pointed out to her just like crashing somewhere and just her the remains never like being found. But there's this documentary, which I will link in the description as well, which is very interesting because it's basically ex-FBI agents and analysts and all that just randomly get together and they're like, we're going to solve the Amelia Earhart case. And they do, kind of. So what they do is they follow the last like testaments and like plane registries and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah,
like,
the flight path.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like technical stuff that I wouldn't be able to explain because I don't know exactly what it is. But apparently at some point she encountered like technical difficulties, something to do with this fog.
Oh, yes.
And I think she either had to fly through somewhere or she had to land somewhere and she couldn't because of the fog. So she got like disoriented and ended up landing somewhere else or like crashing somewhere else. But thing is, she ended up crashing in this atoll, which is basically like a coral island in the middle of, pretty much the Pacific Ocean. But she didn't die. Ow!
Oh my God!
I don't know if that came through the microphone. I'm sorry if it did, but
I'm sure it did. That was loud.
Yeah. So basically this all happened in 1937. Sorry, I'm going through my notes. I haven't been through these since I first wrote them down. But so basically when she disappears, they search for her for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks they quit because they found nothing. And everyone says that like a pilot doesn't usually just like randomly go down. Like usually they have a plan or like something they can do, because it's not just like, oh, we're going down.
Like,
I guess this is it.
a pilot with enough training knows to try and like
because
go through a list of things and how to minimize the damage.
It's always that can always happen. Like you're on a plane, a possibility is that you're gonna fall off the plane. So basically a bit of backstory is that before World War II, the Marshall Islands, which is one of the islands that the islands in which one of them she was the one that she crashed in, they were basically controlled by the Japanese, and Americans were forbidden to just be there and like travel, whatever. But it is known now that the Americans spied on the Japanese by having this like tower radio thing that they had near the Marshall Islands.
Right.
So reports from 1939, which is 2 years after she went missing, informs that Earhart was a prisoner in the Marshall Islands. And what is this?
Oh, yes, because there was reports, but there was never anything confirmed because the Japanese were very secretive about all this.
No. The thing is, the Americans knew that she was there. Like, I'm just going to kind of spoil or, like, wrap it up at the beginning because, like, it's the whole point of it. But, like, basically, the Americans knew that she was there because even though the Japanese or the people from the Marshall Islands or whatever, they didn't know who Amelia Earhart was. Like, if anything, they could have just thought that she was a spy or whatever, which is pretty much what they ended up thinking. they had no reason. Like, there's this very interesting testament in the documentary, which is this man that, because if we did this in the West, someone would come out like, "Oh yeah, I saw Amelia Earhart."
Oh yeah.
But like those people, they don't know who she is. They have nothing to gain from this. So like the testimonials are like very credible.
She was an American celebrity, not then just
Exactly.
purely that.
And also, one thing that was also very interesting is that like a lot of islanders pointed out the fact that she looked like a man because she had short hair, so they were used to that being associated with men.
Yeah.
So, and also like how she wore like dress, like men clothing basically.
Yeah.
And people thought it was very interesting and stuff, so like, it caught their attention, so they remember it and all that stuff. And there's actually a photograph which shows what can be her, because it's basically this white woman and this white man, which is believed to be the co-pilot, I think, sitting on this deck, like on this harbor in the Marshall Islands, one of the Marshall Islands. And then you can see like a Japanese warship in the end that was like analyzed and was like concluded that it was a famous Japanese like war boat. And what looks to be like the remains of the plane, like the plane that they were flying, in the back of that boat. And in the picture you can see Amelia, or what is thought to be Amelia Earhart, sideways, like she's sitting backwards towards the camera, but she's looking sideways.
Yeah.
So they take the picture to this guy to analyze, because apparently this picture had come out like years and years after with one of these like Freedom of Information Acts, and it was like just camouflaged between like a shit ton of other information. And this guy analyzes it, and it's very interesting because he explains the whole process of how to know if a picture is photoshopped or not. And it's very interesting because a lot of the stuff you can actually do with like regular editing software.
Yeah.
Like changing the saturation and like the contrast, because like usually obviously when a picture is like by those one same camera and it's all edited in the same way or whatever, it doesn't have like any bits and pieces added. When you change the settings, they will all change pretty much uniformly through the whole picture, especially in terms of like noise and blurriness and all that stuff. It becomes more noticeable and more either uniform or unequal when you enhance certain aspects of the picture.
Yeah.
Essentially, they analyze the picture, it turns out it's authentic, and it's a white woman with short hair. What else? Well, yeah, testimonials.
That's the thing with the photos back then, is they weren't good enough to get clear photos of people, were they?
But there's even stamps that they made around that time where it's like a man and a woman coming out of a wrecked plane in the islands, which I think is so interesting.
That's got to mean someone saw something and thought, that'll make a good coin.
Yeah, and there's testimony of this doctor that treated them. And they also, apparently the plane that they were flying was very rare, and this team of like ex-FBI agents or whatever, they go to the atoll and they try and look for like any evidence of the wreckage or whatever. And these types of islands, they change a lot throughout the years because they were made out of coral and all that stuff mostly, and that shit's alive. So yeah, they try and look for more or less where it would be, where it crashed, and they find this piece of metal that matches the plane, which was very unique and all that stuff, which I guess could always be planted, but it looked real. It looked realistic. So then there's this other part where apparently, oh yeah, I have written down the whole like. So apparently it was very cloudy and windy that day that they crashed. So they, because of the weather reports, blah blah blah, they determined that they were slightly off course, because that's the thing. If they would have been on course, the weather would have been different. So that's why they concluded that instead of being where people thought they had crashed, they were actually slightly off.
Yeah,
it's just weird because like they have like registries of the altitude and weather and all that stuff that doesn't match with what we're told. But yeah, so blah blah blah. Oh yeah, there was a radio transmission made, and these people that want to make the documentary, they tested it and all that stuff to see if it was like physically possible. To see if it was like physically possible for them to receive radio from that distance and all that stuff. So apparently, this one other witness says that they have seen Amelia in jail, because the Japanese military thought that they were spies and all that stuff. And apparently her co-pilot was killed.
Oh.
Like they executed him and
damn.
And buried him. And apparently she was buried somewhere near it. so what they do is these people, they go to the Marshall Islands, they go to this island, they find the jail where she was supposedly in, and the cell that she was supposedly in, because like I said, they get another testimony of another person that says like that it was very interesting to have this white woman with short hair just randomly in this cell. And they look for the cemetery, they find the cemetery that they were supposedly buried in, but they can't find anything because it's like all covered in like plants and stuff, and a lot of it has been like torn down, and it's not a cemetery that's in use.
Yeah.
So, but one thing that they do find, because they like dig onto the ground toward what's supposed to be the ground at that time, because like different streets of the ground have like different timings and all that stuff. So they don't find the remains, but what they do find is there apparently had been this other expedition to find them. Not the one that was immediately after they went missing, but like a few decades after, like in the 80s or so. Yeah. And what they find is this Coca-Cola bottle from the 80s that is actually in pictures that they took from this first expedition.
Oh.
Because they used it as a size reference.
Oh, right.
To measure it, and apparently they just left it there. So they find this bottle, so they know for sure that they are looking in the right place. They just don't manage to find anything. But it's just so interesting, like how much evidence they have.
So it's one of those ones that was sort of left as a plausible, like sort of not really solved, but still kind of really solved.
Yeah, because I mean,
government still not telling us the truth, but we've got a good idea of it.
The main thing is that the Americans didn't want to go rescue her because that would have outed them as spying the Japanese.
Yeah.
So they basically
and potentially cause a war.
I mean, this was already in World War II.
Oh, yeah.
So. But yeah, so this now it depends on whether you think it's all right or not to sacrifice the life of two people for the greater good of a country in the Second World War.
I think personally, when like ties are already being pulled thin, trying to like do a rescue mission like that's risky. That could cause damage.
But at the same time, yeah, I can out you as a spy, but I don't know. I guess I'm not knowledgeable enough in history to.
I just think a rescue mission probably wouldn't have even been plausible with. Like,
no, I mean
with the sort of things that were going on at the time, there would have been no easy way of like getting around it. Even just trying to talk to them, it wouldn't have worked.
I guess.
But
just an attempt is the intention.
Maybe they were spying. That's the thing. That's probably why they didn't go for it.
Yeah, they were.
Outed.
They were, and they knew that they were there. But if they went, the Japanese would have known that they were there, and that would have been because they were spying.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, my second little one, Dear David. This one's another Twitter story, one that you can go and read up whenever you want. We'll add a link to it. But this one's a bit more interesting, as it solves the problem you had with the previous one, which it's left quite open-ended to which if it's real or not. I will admit a lot of things that do happen into it are just too much for me to think not planned out or like fake. But at the same time, if they aren't, it's really freaky and really amazing to see what's been captured during it. As well as that, what doesn't help this argument is that the person who started posting about this is a writer and illustrator known as Adam Ellis. If you don't know who he is, you've probably seen some of his comics on the internet. They're some of those like really generic 4-panel ones that you can always get all around. Got a very specific style to them. But you've probably seen his work around. But on August 7th of last year, he started posting about how he was getting really bad dreams about a boy who he would later find out was called Dear David, in which this little child wasn't a normal child. It had a massive dent in his oversized head, like bulbous head, and he started to think that these dreams were coming into reality. So that instantly that kicks up to like 11. Like, yeah, oh, this is creepy. It's coming into reality. This is really interesting. At first, he just thought it was a form of sleep paralysis, as he's apparently suffered from this in the past. So he was thinking this was just his imagination making up a monster to terrify him with whenever he woke up a bit too early. This was specifically because he started popping up in a green rocking chair in the corner of his bedroom, which usually is something like that always happens. I've had sleep paralysis before. It's not pleasant. You just see terrifying things that just basically stare at you. It's not fun. He would eventually increase from just sitting there in the corner staring to shambling towards this poor dude until he would get close enough to get near him, and he would jump up and wake up in fear. And then instantly it kind of goes into the horror movie stereotypes, in which at the library or somewhere, a little girl comes up to him and warns him about Dear David, and that he's a ghost, that he always appears at midnight. If he appears to you in your dreams, you can ask him 2 questions, only after you've said his name, Dear David. And then if you can't ask him a 3rd question, or he'll kill you.
It's a ghost, dear.
Yeah, proper Bloody Mary style stuff.
But like, wait, he'll kill you if he can't answer the question?
No, he'll kill you if you try and ask him a 3rd question. So you can ask him 2 questions, but only after saying Dear David before.
But as in, like, he'll tell you he knows everything?
He'll just maybe, but like that it doesn't.
Or he just gives you his opinion.
It might be, but it never really explores that. But again, on the same night, he goes to bed after this weird experience. He has the dream, and then he remembers the little girl's advice and goes, "Dear David, what happened to you?" And then Dave goes, "It was an accident in a store." And it's like, "Dear David, what was the accident?" A shelf was pushed onto his head. And then with forgetting her advice, he asks a 3rd question. Ooh, that's typical horror stereotype. It was like, who pushed the shelf? Realizes he's said a 3rd question. Dear David doesn't answer it. He just stares at him, and then he wakes up in fear, realizing what he's done. It's like, you just fucked up. From that day on, his cats, because he's a cat man apparently, he's got multiple cats, start acting really weird, and on midnight every night they start sitting at his door, and staring at the door for ages on end, and will just sit there and stare on end. And again, this all eventually very slowly escalates to the point where he starts thinking he's seen photos of Dear David that he's taken. Weird coincidences start happening. He starts having dreams of a warehouse. Next thing you know, the warehouse near him shuts down, and the only thing left in the warehouse is a green chair. The warehouse opens up after a while of not being used, and the only thing in there is a funeral car. He actually full on goes to the point where he buys sage and crystals and stuff, starts using them, and then he gets his friend to cleanse the house. And apparently that works for a while, but not for long. But it escalates to the point where he eventually gets actual photos of David in multiple areas, to the point where the last few photos he puts up is just clear photos of this malformed, weird ghost child thing with a dent in its head. So it's either really good effects that are being added to these photos and videos, or a really good puppet, because some of the photos are like a close up of the head, and you can see the hair that's like patchy and all that.
Sorry, my back.
Perfect time and creepy. Just adds to a creepy effect. But yeah, it just adds up. It ranks up like phenomenally, and it slowly goes up. And again, there are times where the disbelief is kind of there, but like it's I like to imagine it a lot like The Ring, in which he's being cursed by this one really maleficent ghost, and he even tries to go on holiday to Japan to try and escape it for a bit, and he just finds a statue that looks really similar to the child in Japan. He's like, oh, this is really weird. And again, he gets footage of like stuff moving in his flat and everything, and it's interesting because it's quite believable, and it uses every form of media Twitter has to offer, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So again, I won't give up the full story, but it's definitely really worth a look.
Yeah, I really like when people do things like that, because like it's very original, and it's definitely something that you have to like think very in advance, I guess.
Yeah, like again,
it's definitely like a new medium of storytelling.
Yeah,
and it
there's
can
a
be
lot
used
of planning
very
that's
well.
being put into it because a lot of people originally realizing this profession thought that this was a form of like advertising, like just getting everyone's attention and then going, I'm releasing a new book about this creepy character, and then but he's like, I don't know, the only thing I'm releasing is a combination of a piece of art that I've been like making over the years and just put it into a little book form for people to buy. So it's, if he has got a meaning behind it, because again, I've left it a while ago that I actually haven't finished the story, or if there's been things added to it, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure about it.
But how, I don't, if he did do it just for an experiment or a joke, it's really well thought out.
Yeah, I don't know how people come up with these things.
That's a lot of time and thought and creativity.
Yeah.
Sorry, just myself comfortable.
So, if you're done with that, I was gonna talk about Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, because for the serial killer one, I had Charles Manson, which isn't technically a serial killer, I know.
Yeah.
And Richard Ramirez, but I think I only talked about Charles Manson. Did I?
You did go a bit fangirly with Charles Manson.
Did I just talk about him?
You're asking the man with the world's worst memory.
I don't even know, because that's the thing. Like, so many, I've spent.
I don't remember you talking about it, so I think we can get away with it.
I don't know. I just don't want to be repetitive because I spend so much time like researching and reading this stuff that like I don't know if I've like said it out loud or said it in a show or just wrote it down.
Let's start talking about it, and then if you feel like you're repeating yourself, then we can find another one.
I think I might have. Yeah, I think I might have talked about him because he. Yeah, I think we talked about him. Yeah, I guess. Sorry.
All right, Carol. You got plenty more notes to go through?
Not really.
Oh no.
I mean, I do have my other ones that I had on my phone for sure. But
yeah, there's probably a few on the little list that we didn't go through.
Sorry, I hate these like moments of silence.
No, it's fine.
What the fuck? Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to talk about Kurt Cobain because I know for sure that I didn't talk about him.
Yes. So let's go with that.
This is a very controversial thing, but there's a lot of suspicions that Kurt Cobain didn't actually kill himself and something else might have happened.
Yes.
So the main thing is that Courtney Love did it. And it's not just because like, oh yeah, she's the one that had like maybe a motive or something. There's like quite a few factors that are very suspicious. So on February 20th of 1967, Kurt Cobain is found dead in his home. Oh no, actually, sorry. He's found dead in his home in 1994.
Oh, right.
He was born in 67.
I was going to say, that was quite late.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just read it, I didn't process it. But yeah, he's found dead in 94, sorry, in a greenhouse room above the detached garage to his home in Seattle. So apparently when he was found, he had already been dead for 3 days, or at least for 34 hours. And Jesus. He was dead for a shot in the head. So he was found by this electric employee thing that was there to just install this like security lighting thing. Which, fun fact, I have here, like, fun fact about finding bodies in murders. I'm not sure about what I meant about that, but I'm pretty sure I meant this. One thing that people will do in a murder when they don't want to be a suspect is they'll either make a purposeful effort for the body to be found by another person, or to make it a thing to find the body themselves with another person present, because that automatically just makes you look less suspicious unless you know something about crimes, in which case it makes you look more suspicious. But yeah, I don't know what that says about that, but yeah, I just wrote that down. So Tom Grant is this guy that was basically the main person to investigate the foul play that was made against him, which he was a private investigator that was actually employed by Courtney Love, which is weird, but I guess that's also another. You can never trust anyone. That's also what a guilty person would do.
I mean, that's definitely one way to make sure you look innocent, is to spy someone to try and figure out you're the killer.
Yeah. So the circumstances essentially is that apparently Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love were going to get a divorce, and this one day in 1994, which was actually the year that he committed suicide allegedly, they were in Rome, and apparently she had found him overdosed with pills with a note that says, "You don't love me anymore. I'd rather die than get a divorce." But apparently Courtney burned the note for some reason. So from that, 3 conspiracies surfaced, basically. One of them was that it was a failed murder attempt.
Yeah.
The other one is that it just actually did happen. And the other one, which a friend of Kurt suggested, is... Wait, no, sorry. Another one was the attempt at making it look like it was a suicide.
Yeah.
So a friend of Kurt says that Courtney was the only one that was talking about Kurt being suicidal and the suicide attempt.
I was going to say, it's usually if a celebrity overdoses, even if they were found and saved, that's big news. Like, that's something that the paparazzi come down on.
Not just that, is that, like, for example, like, obviously not everyone that's suicidal will like talk about it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Especially, well, I'm not gonna talk about this stuff because I don't want to be giving out ideas and all that shit.
No.
But the doctor that apparently treated him in Rome said that he can tell, which I totally believe this because like doctors I've seen enough. It's the thing that I always say with like police and stuff. And yeah, of course, there's like corrupt police. Like you don't have to tell me I'm Spanish, but I like to always have the benefit of the doubt that like even if they try and frame someone or whatever, deep down in their core, they've seen enough guilty people and they've seen enough innocent people to know when someone's like telling the truth or not. Because you can't tell. Like even if you don't know the person, even if they're a weird, quirky person or whatever, there's just some things that body language just says.
Yeah, it's all the subconscious stuff, isn't it? The
so
stuff we can't control.
It's also same thing with doctors, same thing with whatever. They've seen enough murders, they've seen enough batteries and suicides and whatever to be able to tell when something is physically possible and when something is realistic looking and all that stuff. So apparently the doctor in Rome said that didn't look like a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
And Grant, which is this guy that was investigating this whole situation after he actually died, said that if it was actually suicide, they would have actually, like someone would have actually told people to keep an eye on him. Like when someone has attempted suicide once, people are notified, like, listen, just try and like take care of this person.
Especially if they're taken to hospital straight afterwards. They are put on like constant watch.
Yeah.
No one leaves their side.
Nothing like this was apparently ever mentioned. So then this other guy, which is a filmmaker called Nick Broomfield, offered. So apparently, according to him, I think, Courtney Love offered money to this guy called Eldon Duke El Duce.
Oh my God.
Which is this guy from a band. Apparently, she offered him $50,000 to kill Kurt. And this filmmaker, there's actually footage of this. He went to interview this guy, being like, "Is the rumors true?" And he cited by saying, "Oh yeah, she offered me $50,000 to whack Kurt Cobain, blow his fucking head off. She mapped it out up there wherever they live outside Seattle. I know where they live. I didn't think she was serious. I got the gun. She said, blow his fucking head off." This is literal quote from this guy.
Oh my God, how is she not in jail? How is that not instantly a guilty verdict?
Because this was this guy Eldon's final interview as he died days later when he was struck by a train in the middle of the night.
That seems very suspicious. That's proper murder mystery style. She's getting rid of all the loose ends. Ooh, that's terrifying. I don't like that. She's got power.
So apparently, after Kurt left the Exodus Recovery Center, which I think was for drugs more than the suicide thing.
Yeah.
Courtney didn't want to go look for him because she had other businesses there.
Yeah.
Which Broomfield, the filmmaker, concludes he thinks it was this whole situation, if anything, was suicide for a lack of care. I just think that Courtney had moved on and he was expendable, is what he says.
Yeah.
A lot of his friends also accepted suicide, although they were very surprised, which I don't know. I guess it's weird.
Yeah, most people are surprised by that.
No, but in retrospect, we were always framed like we always have Kurt framed as this like very troubled, suicidal person and all that stuff. But according to what I've heard of like actual testimonies and stuff, it wasn't like that really. Like, yeah, he was a sad person. Yeah, he took drugs and all that stuff. But that doesn't necessarily have to equate with being suicidal.
I mean, it's always something that can always be hidden. I mean, just look at Robin Williams.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Someone who never had any idea that you'd think was depressed, and then next thing you know, he's no longer with us.
No, I mean, we don't know if like his family knew all that.
Well, as far as the public knew, but even then, that's usually a very hard thing to do nowadays.
But apparently, Kurt Cobain described Courtney Love as being obsessed with money, possibly as a joke, but I wouldn't be surprised. But apparently, Kurt's ex-girlfriend Mary Lou Lord has accused Courtney Love of being a sociopath and a fake. Failing to use her fame for humanitarian purposes and spreading lies about Lord, this woman, including that she killed Courtney Love's guinea pig, which I don't know where that came from.
Well, that's proper like secondary school bitchy sort of lies.
There's this webpage which is very interesting, and I'm not sure entirely where these tapes come from, but they're basically phone conversations between Courtney Love and either the filmmaker or the private investigator. But it's basically a lot of testimonies. Not all of it is relevant, but it's just very interesting to see what they talk about. I'll leave, like I said, the link in the description. But yeah, it's just like fucking hundreds. Well, maybe not hundreds, but like a bunch of audio tapes of Courtney Love and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But now onto the conspiracies. So the thing that always trips me out the most is the suicide note. Because the suicide note until the very end looks like a farewell to music and a farewell to Nirvana. Like him wanting to leave the band, like it not being healthy for him, whatever. Him wanting to also leave Courtney Love and wanting to leave Seattle. And only the last part like explicitly mentions or like actually has some sort of like suicidal tone to it.
Yeah.
And talks about like Courtney and all that stuff. So a second note was released by police in 2014. I haven't seen this note, but it's not a suicide note, but it's another note in which he calls her a bitch and complains about her being obsessed with money, but the date isn't known. So I don't know. That could have been just like a thing of the moment.
Yeah.
But apparently Courtney Love stated later that she had written that note. A claim that was actually supported by other sources who examined the handwriting, including her sister.
Oh, right.
So it was also like suspected that could have been like practice note, maybe.
Yeah.
Then 3 tests that they made on the note were inconclusive. Although they studied a photocopy and not the original, which I think is also very interesting, because one thing that I thought was very interesting, and I don't know because I started getting into body language more, but I also thought like it's not calligraphy, it's basically like the study of your handwriting, basically. Like what they do in like criminology and all that stuff, like when they analyze handwritings and all that stuff. And one thing that's also like to be taken into consideration is obviously the type of the pen and all that stuff, but the pressure.
Yeah.
That someone applies on the paper.
Because that's like that indicates either anger or stress.
Or it being just a different person.
I was gonna say as well as the fact that like handwriting is a lot of like our fingerprints, which we all write completely in unique ways. Yeah,
and not just because of the aspects. It's just we all have different habits, and you might not be able to see them at plain sight, but you can definitely tell. It's like body language.
Yeah.
But so apparently, when he died, he was high on heroin, I think. But apparently, he had injected 3 times the dose of lethal heroin for a severe addict. Because that's another thing. It's like, he injected himself a lot, but like he also did that a lot. So it's like, he might have. No. It's like, he might have had like a higher tolerance. Like we might think this like was too much for a regular person, but he wasn't a regular person who used to drugs all the time.
Yeah.
But apparently, this would have been like lethal. Even,
to anyone.
Yeah, even for like an addict. And Grant, which is the investigator,
Mm-hmm.
So Grant argues that it's impossible for him to both inject himself that much, because I guess it gets to a point where like you
just knock out.
And much more put everything away, pick up the gun and shoot himself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is by what I've learned through the years.
And apparently, it was
thanks
also
to
like a
Dearv.
long shotgun.
Yeah, it was like a full barrel one, wasn't it? And it was what Dare has taught me about heroin and what horror films and Trainspotting have all told me about it. You can barely move when you're on it. It's like it's the ultimate, like your body just stops moving. So for someone to have that much in them and then be able to reliably pick up a shotgun, put it to the head, and like pull the trigger with their thumb or something, that's a lot of work for someone who's off their face to do.
Mm-hmm. So the toxicological examinations determined that the level of morphine in Cobain's bloodstream was 1.52 milligrams per liter, which I don't know what that is, but that's
like
a lot. Yeah. Like it just, I don't know, it sounds like a lot. But there was also evidence of Valium in his blood.
So basically, a combination of stuff that would definitely kill a man.
But apparently the person that did the toxicology exam doesn't believe that the heroin killed him, just incapacitated him to be shot.
Right. So it was like a sneak attack, knocking him out.
And apparently there were also no usable fingerprints on the gun or the pen.
Which obviously is very instinctively like red alert there.
And I mean,
someone who's going to shoot themselves and then leave a note.
Yeah, they can't be asked with just covering their fingerprints. It's not. There's not a crime scene.
Yeah, it's no point in it. They're not going to deal with it. So for there to be no fingerprints at all is very suspicious.
And I don't believe him to have wanted to frame Curly, honestly.
Yeah.
But
plus, if you were to have gloves on and then shoot yourself in the face, wouldn't you still have the gloves on while you're dead?
Exactly.
It's impossible to do.
Exactly. I hadn't thought of that part, but it's actually yes. But yeah, like I said, this is all like I guess hearsay. Like this could be false.
Like he said, she said. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't have the autopsy right in front of me.
Yeah.
And even if I did, it could be false. Like faked or something, but well, yeah, I actually have it noted here. He killed himself with a long-barreled shotgun, which suggested would have been hard to use to shoot oneself in the head. But yeah, the way the doors were locked was very suspicious too, because they were locked from the outside.
Yeah.
Which is just so on the nose and so obvious, like that.
Because again, like that means someone had to leave the house to do it.
Yeah, or
if he was going to lock himself in,
is he going to lock himself out and then come in through the window?
Exactly.
Like maybe, I don't know, maybe to not get disrupted or something. But like, I highly doubt it. But however, the police seem to have accepted this was possible, but also the police has been known to be very sketch around like just celebrity deaths in general. Well, and actually, this was actually my following note. It is suggested that the Seattle police then collaborated to cover up the true murder. There were theories that the gun had been melted down as a part of the conspiracy, but the police released a series of photographs in 2016 of like the crime scene and all that stuff. Yeah. This misapprehension with the whole like it being suicide thing, may have been because Kornilov had actually explicitly declared an intention to have Kurt Cobain's other guns melted down. Apparently, there's claims that his car was used between his death and the recovery of his body. Another very interesting thing that like might be a bit suspicious is that no one has ever sued anybody for claiming that Kurt Cobain was murdered.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, even with the Madeleine McCann stuff, like anyone who slanders them, they usually go after with a lawsuit. But like that's not even happening yet. So someone's trying to sort of keep it let it die out itself and like lay it low.
Which I mean, I guess doesn't necessarily have to do with anything, because like if you know that you're telling the truth.
You're not going to argue the point, like you're already safe. So
or that might be the point. If you know that you're telling the truth, you are going to argue the point. So I guess that's very subjective. But Kurt Cobain's attorney, Rosemary Carroll, claims that Kurt Cobain had asked her to like write up a will for him and exclude Courtney Love because he had been planning to file for this divorce and all that stuff. Yeah. And it was said that this might have been the motive for for him to be killed. That she wasn't included in the
will.
In the will, yeah.
And it would make sense as well, wouldn't it? It's like to try and kill him before this is finalized, so that you can still get all the benefits of his death.
And also another thing which I didn't know if I imagined or actually like read up on is that there was a handwriting practice note that was found in Kornilov's backpack at her home, and it was suggested that the handwriting of this practice note was remarkably similar to the handwriting in the last 4 lines.
How does stuff like this just get ignored? Like,
because it's celebrities.
Yeah, they do have a lot of power.
Did you not see the whole Marilyn Monroe thing? Like, it couldn't be more fucking obvious.
I mean, O.J. Simpson's a very...
Or O.J. Simpson, like, fuck me.
I didn't kill my wife, but if I was going to, this would be how I do it. Oh my God, how do you have an ego that big that you can imagine you can just do that?
Apparently, also, Kornilov has been accused of plotting to have her daughter's ex-husband killed in a bid to retrieve an iconic guitar that belonged to Kurt Cobain.
Oh my God.
So if she's
not given up,
quoted to be wanting to kill someone for a guitar, then I can't imagine.
That's just petty.
But yeah, apparently in 2016, Kornilov and her manager Sam Lutfi and a group of other men attempted to kidnap and kill this kid to get the guitar back. And he filed a 329-page civil suit, which is nice.
I wonder if they won. Does it say in your notes? If he
not in my notes, no. Well, yeah.
I'm assuming he did if something like that was obviously happening. I want to look into that.
But, well, I haven't mentioned so far anything to do with the 27 Club.
Oh, yes. It's the Cursed Club. I remember now, yeah.
But, actually, one thing that I wanted to mention, which is the thing that I said before and I forgot, even though I mentioned it to not forget, is that I have realized, and I was talking about this today, that I don't believe in, like, zodiac signs and all that stuff. I think it's very interesting, and I think it's also very interesting to see how so many things can be very similar to real life. And I know that some things are like very pandering and very generalizing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you also have to see it as a broader spectrum. And a thing that I've realized is that there has been a lot of crimes and murders and shit happen in Taurus season.
You all cursed.
Because the thing is, like, I'll be watching a documentary or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, this person killed fucking 3 people on the 30th of April. And I'm like, oh, that's after my birthday. Or they'll be like, oh, on the 27th of April. And I'm like, oh, that's almost near my birthday. So that's the thing. Like, I've noticed, because every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's very close to my birthday. So I'm like, wait a minute. What?
You might have to keep like some sage in your room around near your birthday time. That seems to be the like
Taurus season is wild, man.
He's all mad. He's a curse, I swear. At least my little star sign thing just makes me constantly confused. But no, I'm all out. Is there any more things you want to go on about?
Well, I mean, originally I also wanted to talk about Tupac and all that stuff. But
we've got a few minutes. So we could probably go on about the 27 Club. I mean, I highly doubt we went on about that. And it's something that can quickly be... Shit. What have you just done?
Rip my notebook.
Oh, well. But it's something that can, like, very easily be not generalized, but, like, pretty much explained, in which it's just this cursed group of people, like, celebrities, basically, in which... Like, I can't remember the general rules for it. I don't know if you remember them or... I
mean, it depends on where... Basically, 27-year-old artists, famous artists, that die terrible deaths. Maybe after selling their soul to the devil. In exchange of success, maybe.
Yeah, that's usually a thing. It's like, and I think it's quite interesting that enough people have had this happen. That it's become,
but that's just confirmation bias, though.
Yeah, true. I mean, again, it's just that thing where we're always wanting to make connections between stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, David Bowie didn't die at 27.
That's true. That's very true.
Fucking Keith Richards hasn't died yet.
That was fine.
So many icons
see that film. What was it called? The one Rocket Man.
Yeah.
God, he's still going large, isn't he?
Mm. But yeah, so many people haven't died.
Yeah, it's just people trying to make a connection that isn't really there. They just like the idea that this
especially it being like, because who's in the 27 Club? Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin.
What's his name? Used to put the acid on his forehead.
Jimi Hendrix.
There we are. That's it.
But at the same time, it wasn't an era where drugs were a thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, the first one is apparently Jim Morrison.
Yeah, Jim Morrison.
In which, like, again, 1938 odd. So again, it was
what? Really?
To join the 27 Club in 1938. Yeah.
Did he die that soon? Fuck. I didn't know it was that early on.
I actually don't know him by name. This is the first I've heard of it.
I didn't know he.
So Brian Jones.
Didn't know he fucking died in the 30s. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's that's very early.
Because he's a rock musician. Oh, Robert Johnson.
Oh, did I just misread that?
Yeah, I don't know. Who
My
Robert
mistake.
Johnson is. Yeah, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure fucking Jim Morrison had some sort of like color photography or something of himself.
Oh, there we are, 1969. That makes more sense.
Yeah, there we go. Because I'm like,
sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I just like for a second, I'm like, my life is a lie.
There's a 30-year gap that there's just missing.
Jim Morrison died in the 30s. But
even in the Wikipedia article, it brings up Kurt Cobain's one being one of the more recent ones with 1994. Yeah,
that's the thing. There's not even been that like any 27 Club deaths as of late. I don't think.
Yeah, it's just that
because
thing
like Lil Peep was 21, X was fucking who cares. Mac Miller was 24, 23.
God, that's kind of sad knowing he was quite young. He was a good artist. But that's the thing. It's like it's just a thing where people are trying. I mean, if you go through the deaths that are probably on there's probably a large enough gap between them that it just happens to be a thing.
And it's probably not even that many people. It's just coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, we're not at the full hour, but I mean, we're already past 10, and I think we've talked about enough stuff. Do you have anything else to talk about?
No, I just want to say is like, cheers guys for being with us all the way through this. Again, we are going to hope to try and keep this up in some way or form. We'll update you as we get a ground plan there. But
I mean, the radio is like 100% for sure going on holiday.
Yeah, definitely. While we're away. I mean, that's why we're live streaming today. Is it's now being turned to only daytime access rather than nighttime, and with our show being very creepy in origin, we have to have ours have work on the nighttime. So, but no, hopefully I can at least get that working when I come back to uni. As sadly, Pinkie is done in England for the foreseeable future. I mean, you're thinking holidays might be an occasional thing, but as far as foreseeable future is going, you're back to Spain.
Yeah, sadly. Definitely not full time. Yeah, but yeah, thank you guys for following us. Make sure to follow our social media. It will be in the description, but it's at _creepycorner and at CP Creepy Corner on Facebook, where we will definitely be posting stuff over the holidays. So you'll be sure to have some creepy content there more often. But yeah, apart from that, I hope you like the bits and bobs that we had for today. We will leave links in the description, and
yeah, we'll see you soon, guys. Cheers again for following us all the way through this.
But
bye. Yeah. Bye.
Oh, shit.
Good way to end.